welcome to the Indomitable podcast. I'm your host, Di Cerullo, and today we have another great episode that will leave you inspired. My guest today is the indomitable Lynn Abaté-Johnson. After being a primary caregiver for her mother for over 6 years, she understands the typhoon of emotions and responsibilities that come with caring for a loved one. By using her natural organizational skills and a solid work ethic, she developed systems and processes to help her navigate the difficult journey of caregiving that led her to writing her book, Out of Love, A Daughter's Journey with Her Mom to the End. Wow. Hello, Lynn. I am so grateful to have you here.
Thank you, Di. Thanks for having me. It's really exciting to be with you.
I'm so honored. So, I guess let's start off. You can tell us a little bit about yourself and fill in some of the stuff that I have left out here.
Sure. Some of my titles, I'll say that. Right?
Yes.
If you go on LinkedIn, this is what you'll see on LinkedIn.
Yes, perfect.
Keynote Speaker, international best-selling author, global business consultant, and community builder. Yes. And I'm a content creator, obviously, because you have to be, with all of these things going on, and you have to know how to create content. And I do have a blog that I love to write in, and I have the book, and this is my book here.
Love it. It's such a beautiful cover. I love it. Yes, and your mother is so beautiful, and I wanted to make sure I said that to you. So you are both gorgeous human beings, and it just shines out of you. Please continue.
Thank you so much. Well, what I do in the world is I bring people together. I really love connecting people from all walks of life and globally. And I know now at this stage and age of my life that we are probably feeling more disconnected than ever as human beings. Yes. And so I am on a mission to connect people more than I ever did before. I was always kind of naturally gifted at connecting people, and people would always come to me and say, who do you know for that? And who do you know for this? And that would be something that I took pleasure in, connecting, especially in the business world, because I've always been a champion for small businesses. And I worked for many, many years building businesses with entrepreneurs who were just starting out. Then I worked in Silicon Valley for a internet startup. And that's when my mom got diagnosed, is when I was working in Sunnyvale, and I was commuting. When I first published the book in 2022, I thought, this is kind of maybe giving some people a roadmap who are family caregivers. Like, how do you do this when you're a professional and you have to work? Like I'm one of those people who, I was caught because all of a sudden I was a family caregiver for my mom. And I also had to work. There was no way I could quit my job. And so I had to keep the job. I had to do what I could to help my mom. And that was, it's a very common thing. I mean, the statistics today are staggering for the number of people, 80% who are caregivers in the world of our population, and the high percentage of those who are women, and then the high percentage of those who are also business women or professional people who have to make that choice very often between caring for their loved one or working. And so we got hit with my mom's diagnosis. It was very much like deer in the headlights time. And we had never experienced anything like that before in our family. I'm the oldest of 5. So I'm a natural kind of leader and over responsible, as I've learned through all of my years of coaching.
Eldest daughter.
Over responsible. And so writing the book was not the way. Like, it's not like Mandalorian, this is the way. No.
No.
This book is a conversation starter. That's all it is. And I have found that through the stories, you're a storyteller like I am, through all of the stories that I've been hearing, from other family caregivers, there are so many ways and there are so many resources. But back in 2011, when my mom was diagnosed and that happened, there weren't as many resources as there are today. So luckily, I think our culture is starting to wake up and realize
Mhm.
that we need each other and
Yes.
we need to
Yeah,
be able to tap into resources. So,
absolutely.
yeah,
Community
yeah,
is power. Nope, I completely agree.
yeah. Community is everything. And I wanted to, I love your podcast, by the way. I'm a big fan. I
Thank
listened
you.
to your podcast with, I think his name is Andre from the
Mhm.
Ukraine.
Yep. Yep.
Came
Yep.
here
Uncle Andre.
like right before the war in Ukraine
Yes.
started.
Yes.
He's talking about people that he met along the way in his travels. Like, I think
Mhm.
he said he went to Egypt first or something, and um,
Turkey first.
okay,
No. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Cyprus, and then he came here. Yep.
Cyprus, yeah. And then so all of these travels along the way to get to the United States and
Mhm.
get some support and get away from the war. He
Mhm.
connected with people in community, and people were telling their stories and really feeling like, oh, we're not alone. Like, we have
Yes.
these things in common. So even though we may be from different cultures and different backgrounds and
Mhm.
different religions and
Yes.
all the different practices of life,
Right.
we're human first and
Right.
foremost. And
Right.
as humans, I think the thing that we have in common is that we all want to love and be loved,
Of
bottom line.
course. Right. Right. We are all looking for the same things. We are all looking for that validation. We are all
Yeah.
looking to just have our needs met. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. And
So
so that
yes.
was when he said that, I thought, because I think you both mentioned the paradox of trauma.
Yes.
I even wrote a chapter about it in the book about
Mhm.
how two things can be true at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
And so the paradox of trauma is that it's horrible and it's beautiful all at
Mhm.
once.
All at once and very
Yeah.
difficult to explain for exactly that reason. Yep.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yes. So,
So, tell me about your mom.
oh, my mom. Well, if you
Please,
see,
if you wouldn't mind.
you kind of see my mom, through me or me through my mom, as it were, when she was
I
still
can
alive.
see that. Yes.
Yeah, she was a Spitfire. She would never say die.
Of
She used
course.
to say, and I write about this in the book, she used to say, "I'll tell you when to worry." She could see the worry and the anxiety on my
Course.
face,
Of
you know,
course.
and she knew
Yeah.
me well. I'm her firstborn. I'm
Mhm.
the closest to her in terms of age, and
Mhm.
she had me when she was 20.
Mhm.
And so she was a very young mom. And um, I think she saw me as, I mean, I know my mom loved me. I didn't have the typical relationship with well, I won't even say it. Nothing's typical anymore.
Right.
Right. Um,
Typical to what? Yeah.
oh, what?
Typical of
Um,
what?
I didn't have what I guess sometimes I think of, that lovey-dovey relationship. I never had that with her. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved my mom and she loved me, and we were
Right.
more like siblings or business partners in a way. And so there was a lot of pragmatism. My mom was very pragmatic. So even when she got the diagnosis of having ovarian cancer, it was like,
Mhm.
okay, well, what's
Yeah.
next? Let's get
What's next?
ourselves educated about this. And so
Mhm.
I like that we had that relationship. I'm
Right.
keenly aware, and I know that you came through the foster system, and so I'm
I
keenly
did.
aware that not everybody even has a bio mom that's present, and
Right. Right.
much less have a relationship with them. Fortunately for us, I feel like we were so privileged in this way that my
Mm.
mom was able to, she had insurance.
Right.
She had
Right.
her own home.
Right.
She didn't have to come and live with any of us. We were able to
Right.
take care of her in her
Mhm.
home. There were many, many things that so many of us, and I previously took for granted
Right. Sure.
until I saw how my mom went down, like that, the cancer just took her down. And
Mm. Mhm.
it was a roller coaster, right? So
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
low lows and then some pretty high highs during that 6+ years that
Right.
she fought. Um, but it made me actually more socially and culturally aware of
Right.
wh- where we live and how we
Mm-hmm.
live. And, I'm looking out at the street right now and I'll see a person who's unhoused and I'll
Mm-hmm.
think, you know what? That old saying, like, what is it? There, but for the,
Yeah, but by the
uh,
grace of God go I.
yeah, that one.
All the time. I think it all the time. Yep.
Yeah. And I say, that could have been my mom if she
Yes.
wouldn't have had family, if she
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have had insurance, if she wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have had a roof over her head, then my
Yes.
mom could have ended up on the streets that way. And so, yeah, it's really made me more sensitive, I think, and more community minded in terms of, what I do now, how I go about making money, for example, or how I
Right.
go about volunteering in my community, or the kinds of things that I think about on a daily basis are more informed by my experience through that trauma
Right.
of my mom getting sick and dying.
Right. Right. Well, more empathy informed, right? Like you're more empathy informed and living through a lens of knowing that everything can change at any moment. And that can be very destabilizing, but it can also be a lens of, a lens that you can look through for the truth of the matter. And I think that that's a beautiful thing to take away from not not what we wanted from a situation, let's say.
Yeah.
That's
I
that's
think
beautiful.
you just hit on something. You just really hit on something that I think is the truth of the matter. And the truth of the matter is, for me, is that we all need each other.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the truth of the matter for me is that, like the Ram Dass quote, we are all just walking each other home.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
when we say typical or atypical, and I loved, what did you say about sparkly, neurosparkly or neuros?
Neurosparkly? Yes. Right. I call myself neurosparkly because neurodiverse seems to, or neurodivergent rather, seems to be, not really what I mean. I think people look at me and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "No, no, it's not an I'm sorry thing." you
Uh,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I think words matter. Excuse me.
Yes,
Words matter today. And I
that's right.
love that you made a new terminology out of your experience.
Right.
Um,
Thank you.
I have a very, very, very good friend who's bipolar
Mm-hmm.
and um, and recovering alcoholic. And he has gone through the last, I don't even know how many years, maybe 20 years since he quit drinking and then he got diagnosed with bipolar. And
Mm-hmm.
I won't say that word, the D word, after bipolar. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows what it is. They say
Mm-hmm.
it's a disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that anymore because
No. Right.
I I see that he has like this beautiful gift and this beautiful
Yes.
brain. And what
Yes.
he's doing with it now is he's sharing it with people like me who have not been touched by those things, those diagnoses. So
Yes.
I'm learning, like I've been learning from him. I've been just like, I want more, tell me more. And
Yeah.
it's just really a gift. And so I
Yes.
would stop with the quote unquote normal or
Mm.
culturally acceptable
Right.
vernacular.
Right.
And I would
Right.
stop using those words. And
Yeah.
again, that's woven through every single thing I do um,
Absolutely.
in life.
So we
Yeah.
create advocacy when we're, and not to go off on a tangent here, when
Yeah.
we're, so I say neurosparkly because my children are also neurosparkly, right? So whenever I am trying to teach my son about himself, and whenever I'm trying to teach him, because I don't look at it as like a deficit, I look at it as a benefit. It lets me think about a lot of things at once. It lets me see a lot of the world from the outside. And do I stumble in like professional situations when somebody's like, "Oh, hey, how was your weekend?" And like I actually tell them, "Yeah, a little bit." I get why. But other times I am just like exactly what people need at the right moment, or
Yeah.
seeing the thing exactly the way it needs to be seen. Now,
Yeah.
we definitely struggle in classrooms, But like, if I can teach him the language of advocacy, he will look at himself in a different way than I had the ability to look at myself when I was his age. So
Mhm.
now he is the little ADHD advocate of his classroom, where he's teaching them about why sometimes we have to use medication and why sometimes we do this and why we need a little bit of extra time for these things.
Yeah.
And if I could have been that, if I could have had that at that age, how much my life would have been changed and how much unlearning I would have had to do. And I think that like anybody that's dealing with neurodiversity or any other life that is different than the, let's say, the main narrative, they have so much to teach us about what it is to be human. So I'm always super excited, like you said, to learn from other people who don't think like me, who don't learn like me, who don't see the world like I do. So absolutely. No, you're completely amazing and perfect and right.
Oh, thank you.
You're completely right.
Well, us human beings, we love to be right, don't we?
Oh yeah. Our brains like to be right, certainly.
Okay, so I'll take it. Thanks for that.
Yes, absolutely.
The funniest thing is to me that it took me, this long in my life to actually get more curious. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
it took me kind of writing a book and publishing a book and
Yes.
having the courage to do that, to get more curious about who I am. And
Right.
this is what I teach, train, and consult my clients on is,
Right.
figure out who you are first, because without that, your business is going to falter in some way.
Yes.
Like you've got to be
Yes.
really solid. And if that
Yes.
takes working with a coach, which is what I've been doing,
Yes.
or a therapist, or whatever help you need to get for that, because none
Mhm.
of us can do this alone. So
Absolutely.
figuring out our identity and who we are, like that leader within, who we really
Mhm.
are and why
Yes.
we exist on the planet, then your
Yes.
business can be built from there. Then we have a solid
Yes.
foundation on which we can build your business. So I created this course called Show Up You, hashtag
Mhm.
Show Up You.
Yep.
And the Show Up You is to do exactly that. It's very simple, and yet it's beyond the capacity for a lot of business people
Of
or
course.
super
Yeah.
analytical people to really
Mhm.
understand. And
Yes.
so in my course, I delve into the being of the human
Yes.
more than the
Yes.
doing, because I'm a doer. All of the mechanics are there. You know,
Yes.
the tools exist. Anybody can find anything anywhere just by Googling or getting on LinkedIn or whatever. So really
Mhm.
what's missing is that you are the thing. Like the thing is
Right.
not out there.
Right.
It's not a
Right.
piece of software. It's not an
Right.
email funnel. It's
Right.
not a website. It's not social media.
No.
It's
Yeah.
here.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I think that the curiosity about, who we are as
Mhm.
individuals, and then who we are for our communities, and then how that ripples out to the world, you know, um, real, and this because you've lived it, you've experienced this,
Of
you know,
course. Yeah.
um, is really what makes the difference. It's really what matters is those human connections and that community that we're building organically. Like
Organically.
you
Yes.
don't have to pay for
Absolutely.
that shit. Like
No. No.
you don't have to
Yeah.
spend money on anything. And when I was younger, I used to think, you know, I'm only one person. Like, what
Yes.
difference does it make if I
Right.
say
What can I
anything?
do?
Yeah, I'm only one person. If I say something, then who's going to even care? And now what I have realized is that one conversation at a time, and I've seen it happen, can make the biggest impact on a
Yes.
community, large or small.
Right. Absolutely. You're totally right. Yep.
Yeah.
So
So,
it reminds me of and to show that I am just absolutely living in my early mom years here. It reminds me of the book The Lorax, when the Lorax asks, which way does a tree fall? And he says, what? I don't know. And he says, a tree falls the way it leans, right? A tree falls the way it leans. Be careful which way you lean, because when you fail, if you are, leaning toward good, you will fail good. And then if you are leaning towards wrong, you will fail wrong. So every time I think about not even just business owners, but as people, every time I think of us as people, trying to ask other people who we are, trying to get I mean, even social media, they call it our feed. Like every
Yeah.
time we get right, I mean, it's like I sit there and I'm like, wow, they're just saying the quiet part out loud, huh? Like
Yeah.
when I think about how we even talk about this stuff, you know, I mean, you've lived in tech, I've lived in tech. We don't even call, only two industries call our participants users. Only two industries call our
Yeah.
customers users. It's drugs and it's tech. So it's
Yes.
like, it's so fascinating to me when we think about how we go about figuring out who we are as people. And we do it so much by looking outside ourselves rather than looking inside ourselves.
Mhm.
So, yes, exactly.
And
Agree.
the way that our systems have been set up, hello patriarchy, it's
Eyebrows?
it is literally, it's a setup, right? For
Yes.
us to plow through, to have these masculine, which I have been, you know, my whole life and my mom was so, you know, masculine centric, and in her like manner of being is just compartmentalize, leave those emotions to the side, brush it over, you know, fake it till you make it, plow
Right.
through. And
Right.
and again, words matter, you know, like
Yes.
the
Yes.
feed on social media. Yes, let's like tap a vein. We're gonna feed you what
Yeah.
we want
Yep.
you to see.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
like as a social media specialist and a community builder, you know, I see that all the time. I teach the antithesis of that, you know, like they don't tell you
Yeah.
the algorithm for a reason. Nobody wants you to know what these software
Right.
companies are developing as far as the algorithm. You have to
Mhm.
figure out ways to get over it, get through it, get
Yes.
around it, and
Mhm.
organically without spending any money on ads, by the way,
Right.
which is also what I love to do. And it doesn't become as much a feed as it becomes something that you have curated yourself. So
Right.
um,
Intentional curation. Yep.
yeah. And then, yes, that whole user, you know, terminology is just such
Mhm.
bullshit. And then resources, like referring to people in Silicon Valley as resources. Like,
Yeah.
no, they're not effing resources. They're
Yes.
people, they're human beings. And guess what?
Yes.
They might have a mom at home that has cancer. You know, I didn't even, you know, I'm getting so fired up now, but
Please continue the fired up. That is where I live my best life. Continue. I'm fine. I can keep up.
it was I wrote about this in the book about how working in Silicon Valley and not really having those relationships, right?
Right. Right.
Within my own company community, even on
Right.
the marketing team, I had a couple of people that I trusted because I worked closely with them. So
Right.
I did eventually I told them, look, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. Shh, don't tell anyone. Don't tell the
Right.
bosses because they have the power to let me go. If they
Mhm.
somehow think that Lynn is not capable of
Right.
doing it all, which
Right.
of course she's
Right.
capable of doing it all.
No
I
one
was
cares. Yeah.
Rosemary's daughter.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
Rosemary's Baby. I could do it
Yeah.
all.
Of
Um,
course. Of course.
and so I didn't trust them enough to keep me around if I had a sick mom at home that I was
Right.
working on my laptop from the hospital waiting rooms and the doctor's offices and stuff. So,
Right.
you know,
Which is
so
their loss. I mean, that's absolutely their loss and their failure. If you don't
yeah.
feel like you can be vulnerable, then that's their failure. What a loss for them.
Yeah, and you know, so I did keep my job until the company didn't get their Series B funding, and then you know, the first business unit to go when that happens with the Silicon Valley company is marketing. It's
Mhm.
ironic, but
Of
that's
course.
that's the first business unit to go when a company doesn't get their funding, right?
Right.
And so they
Yeah.
didn't get the Series B funding, so that's okay because then I was able to concentrate more on my mom and you know like
Yeah.
put these systems and structures into place. And so now what the reason I exist today is to unwind all of that old crap that has
Mhm.
been piled on through all of these you know, years
Years.
and do it in my own way. And, you know, to do things like to show up, for example, on LinkedIn, to humanize
Right.
LinkedIn, to talk
Right.
about stuff on LinkedIn that is deemed personal. And it's like,
Oh,
well,
right?
you're not a
Yes.
robot.
You're not a robot. Exactly. You know how many comments I get that's like, oh, is this LinkedIn appropriate? And it's like, well, it's life appropriate and I'm at work. So isn't it? Like, what else are we? I do people. Are you sure? Like, what are you talking about? It's incredible to me. And
Yeah.
how many people feel so comfortable shooting down or commenting or biting back at somebody that they don't even know.
Yeah.
It's incredible to me how comfortable people feel and entitled, how
It is.
entitled people feel
It
to let
is.
you know that they don't feel like you are in their space appropriately. None of
Yes.
us work for LinkedIn. None
I
of
know.
us, you know what I mean? It's just so incredible. I'm just like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
I am awesome at what I do. Are you sure? Like, I would never know you in real life. Like, are you kidding me? How did you get here? It's incredible to me. Absolutely.
Sometimes I want to say, when I see comments like that, especially I'm so protective of my friends that when they're on social media and then somebody comes in and drops a comment that was completely unsolicited, they
Of
didn't
course.
ask their opinion. And I want to
Mhm.
comment in there and be snarky, but I never do.
Right.
Who made you the social media police?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
who made you the LinkedIn police?
Right. Right. And if you think about every comment that somebody makes at you being something they really think about themselves, it makes it even next level interesting, because
It,
most of the things that I talk about are neurodiversity or how we deal in the world or how we parent neurodiverse kids or how any of those things, right? So anytime somebody will pop into my comments being like, what do you know? Shame on you. This, that, and the other. I'm like, where did you come from with this attitude? Like, you can't, like, who talks to you like that? That's not how we communicate as people.
yeah,
This is not how we talk to each other on earth anywhere. Like, why are we talking to each other like this? Why are you
yeah,
talking to me at all? Just move on.
yes. I
And
mean, it's no wonder so many of my clients come to me and they hate social media, right?
I
They,
hate social media. Yes,
they
me
don't
too.
want to be there. They don't want to be on it. And
Of
I'm like,
course.
yeah, it's no wonder that you don't, because there's still so much stigma, there's
Yeah.
shame,
Yeah.
people are taking time to get to know each other. And so
Mhm.
now the way that I'm approaching it is with that curiosity and
Yes.
like, let's take it offline. Let's have a
Mhm.
conversation. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm the first one. If you want to fight, fight me. I'll fight you. But
Right?
I don't,
That's not what you want. I am a queer individual that will just make you feel bad about yourself. Like, please don't. I don't want
yeah.
to be that person anymore. I have grown. Like, oh, come on. Please don't do that,
So,
Sarah.
yeah. And so it's like, okay, let's have a conversation because one of the things that's really, really difficult for brands to do today is to welcome people in warmly and have them
Mhm.
feel appreciated, seen, loved, held, and all of
Yeah.
that. Because
Yeah.
in the past, the old fashioned kind of corner barbershop way, um,
Yes.
we were standing out on the corner and we were saying hello to people out in front
Mhm.
of our businesses. If we had a
Mhm.
little boutique, we weren't like
Yeah.
standing there behind the counter. We were actually out front. And
Yeah.
even today, when I do like an event where I have a
Mhm.
table and my book is there, I'm speaking,
Mhm. Yeah.
I never, ever, ever sit or stand behind the table. And if I could give entrepreneurs one big tip about events and how to show up at
Yeah.
events, it would be stand out front, like
Mhm.
be out front with the people and
Mhm.
greet them and say hello, be human and look people in the
Absolutely.
eyes. So now we have digital marketing, right? All
Mm.
these years. So when I got into digital marketing, because I came up in kind of the old school sales and marketing, running family
Mhm.
businesses and things like
Yep.
that, nowadays it's looking people in the eye digitally. And this is
Mhm.
the biggest challenge I see for brands is to be able to translate that warmth and that love
Mhm.
and that welcoming through the
Mhm.
screen and the keyboard.
Right. Right. Yep.
So there are ways to do it,
Mhm.
and there are ways around the algorithm. There are ways to organically grow communities.
Mhm.
Um, I know I've proven it. The last company I was with, I grew their global community by 160% over
Wow.
4
Wow.
years and 9 months. So
That's amazing. Yeah.
it was amazing to me. And I
Yeah.
think, the I mean, really that has to do with the community. It doesn't have to
Right.
do with me as much
Yes.
as
Right.
me bringing in the community, because
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest gift that a business owner or a brand can give themselves is
Mm-hmm.
to talk a lot less about themselves. I use the
Yeah.
20/80 rule for this, the
Right.
80
Right.
20 20 rule.
Yep.
Talk less about yourself, and your
Mm-hmm.
mission is to gather your customers around each other and have
Mm-hmm.
them get to know each other and have
Right.
them support each other. So now what I
Right.
do with my own clients and customers is I get them in a group together and I introduce them and I encourage them to do business with each other, refer each
Right.
other, cheer each other on. So these are some of the really beautiful ways that we can use the tools like social
Right.
media
Right.
instead of letting the tools use you. So that's one of my biggest mantras is, yeah, we
Mm.
have this tool. It's called social media. It's only one
Mm-hmm.
slice of the pie. So
Mm-hmm.
use it. Don't let it use you.
Right. Well, I mean, that's absolutely the cornerstone of making social media successful is the fact that you have come in and you have created a space that people feel comfortable being themselves in. Because once you have created that space, you don't have to be in the comment section arguing with Sarah, who doesn't feel like you should be talking at all about yourself, because
Right.
all of your people who you have shown yourself to, who you've shown love to and respect to, are going to be in that comment section keeping it clean for you. You're absolutely right. Yes. I feel
Yes.
like I can't stop saying this to you, Lynn, but you're right, Lynn. You're absolutely right.
Well, I mean, you
I can't stop having this conversation here today.
oh, I love you. Well,
No.
I'm so glad that we met and that we got
Yeah.
to, hang out here today, and
Yeah.
really, really love what you're up to in the world. Listening to your
Thank you.
podcasts, I always vet podcasts before I agree to be a guest
Yes,
on them.
it's bad. It's you don't if you're listening, there are so many crazy things that can happen to you if you don't do this. It's actually very good protocol. Please continue, Lynn.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it only happened to me once, but once was
Me
enough.
too.
I,
Exactly.
when you're younger and you're in business and you're hungry and you need to make some money and you need to
Yeah,
get your name out there, you're willing to do almost anything and show up almost anywhere. And
of
so
course.
I said yes to these two hosts, two women, and they had me on and they contradicted every effing thing I said. And
Yes.
my
Yes.
mentor at the time was listening in and he's texting me. He's like, "What the hell is going on? Stop.
Yes.
Get
Yeah.
out of there." Like they
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
they're having you for lunch and they don't even have the same philosophy that you have about human to human or about doing business. So you don't
Hmm.
even need to be in the same airspace as them right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, damn, like there I go, trusting people again. So now, I mean,
Yes.
like you have to trust in
Trust
a healthy
but
way.
verify. Yep.
Yeah, trust and verify. Yes. These are the conversations, these one-on-one conversations
Yes.
that can make a difference in our world healing, in our world coming closer together, in people looking at others as human beings. Um,
Mm.
instead of their
Hmm.
differences, and
Right.
culturally
Right.
culturally figuring out what makes us the same instead
Hmm.
of focusing on what makes us different. Although I am fascinated about what makes us different as well,
Yeah.
as
Yes.
long as it's in a healthier context of
Right.
asking questions instead of making
Yep.
accusations,
Of
or
course.
like we started out, like having to be right. That's like the coin of the
Mm.
realm for human beings
Hmm.
is
Oh yeah.
you have to be right.
Of course.
So
Yeah. For me, I don't need and I'm not saying this is all neurodivergent people, but it's a large portion of us don't necessarily need to be right so much as we need to be. So let me back that up. What we do is we ask questions differently. And what I
mm,
mean by that is if I were to say to you, why did you do it that way? What I mean is, tell me why you did it that way so I can think about how I do it and decide if your way is better than my way. What we
Yeah.
have recently found out is that when other people say, why did you do it that way? It's meant as an accusation. And it's interesting because our community, the neurodiversity community, is suddenly coming to the conclusion that we are all using questions to serve different purposes. So I do not need to be right, but I need you to explain to me why I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. Like, I love having long conversations about how I'm wrong, but like, I can't stand when you'll like talk to someone and you'll be like, oh, but it's actually this. And they'll be like, everybody has a different opinion. And then I'm like, oh, no, it's actually, this is a fact-based thing. This is a science thing. And they're like, this is my opinion. And it's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like, I can't deal with that. That's the thing that my brain needs to be right about. I cannot manage. When it's an opinion thing, I would love to hear different opinions. When it's a different experience thing, oh my God, tell me everything about your experience so I can look through that lens too. I would love to think about this more, right? I've known I'm ADHD since I was a child because growing up in foster care, I was diagnosed so early. So I've spent my life advocating for myself, advocating for the people around me, and having to explain to teachers and administrators and all of those people what I have going on with me and what it means, right? It doesn't make me less, it makes me awesome. It makes me sparkly, right? And so to have somebody look at you and be like, that's my opinion. You don't exist. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's where I leave you then. This is where I keep going. And I'm
Yes.
hoping as I continue to age, I'm 40 now, and I'm so grateful to have gotten here. I never assumed I'd get to this age at all. As I continue growing, I'm like really pumped to leave that need behind, that need to explain myself, or that need for you to agree with me that I'm right. You know what I mean? I'm hoping to just be like, you know what? 2 + 2 equals 6. Great. You're right. Bye.
Yeah.
Like, perfect. You keep living your life. I'm not mad
Yeah.
about it. I'm
Yeah.
hoping to get there for sure. But, it's not easy.
I think that the curiosity, and you're right about the distinction, and the types of questions that we've asked, that we
Right.
ask. I've learned
For
this
sure.
through coach training and leadership training that I've done over the last few years. And, there's a difference. Like, you could still ask an open-ended question about something
Right.
factual. Like, you could say, what have you learned about that? Like, teach me, right?
Yes.
2 + 2,
Exactly.
about
Yep.
what 2 + 2 is. Or
Mhm.
on the other side of it, that's more like, that's not a fact, that's more like opinion or a feeling or a lived experience.
Yes.
That question would be more like, how would you approach that? Like,
Right. Yes.
I even, I do that in my marriage. Like, how
Mhm.
would you approach that? Because, my husband
Mhm.
and I are different. And
Yes.
so it's very, very, I think, important to learn to be a better question asker, um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and really be open to learning about. I
Learning.
mean, I know
Right.
what I'm saying. What I'm saying is a lot easier said than done. I get that. It's a practice.
Sure. I think
It's a
if you
practice.
are able to take your ego out of learning, you can learn with more authenticity. I think if
Yes,
you're willing to take your ego out of building community, you can build more authentic community. I'm not
absolutely.
saying that's easy. I'm saying it's necessary. I
Yes.
think that if you continue to go out in the world in those ways with your ego first, the way a lot of us seem to need to do, it's not going to give back the way you need it to give back. And
Mhm.
I'm hoping that even if people need to continue to, maybe be a little bit shaded, maybe be a little bit, covered, maybe not be as out loud as I am or you are, maybe they can be a little bit more authentic by looking inward and deciding what they think for themselves.
Yeah, and I think sometimes those are the exact people, the ones who are maybe a little bit more shy or reticent
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
get themselves out there. A
Hmm.
lot of those people are the writers and the authors and the
Yes.
journaling
The
people.
watchers, the observers.
They're
Yes.
watching, they're observing, they're journaling, and
Hmm.
I have a new branch of my Show Up You course, which is specifically for authors and writers who know that they have a story in them. They just don't know how or, what to do for second and third. And so what I'm teaching and training and consulting them on is how to show up as themselves, as that author, and
Right.
what kinds of things they need to be concerned about and worry about and be anxious about, and what kinds of things they can just, no,
Let
don't
go.
worry about that. Don't worry. And so I'm really in a position now where I feel like, I've already contributed to one book. It's a marketing for coach businesses book, and then my own book here. And then I've got another chapter coming out in another collaborative book. And then I'm writing another book. So I feel like now at least I have a little bit more confidence in there's no, again, it's like, there's no the way.
Right. There's no the way.
It's only who you are and how you
only
show
who you are. That's exactly right. It doesn't matter how I would do things or how you would do things if that won't work for everybody, because not everybody's us. What do you think, what do you advise for first-time authors who think they might have a story in them? What's like your key takeaway piece of advice? Not to give it away here for free, but like what's the best piece of advice you can offer?
Yeah, a start.
Right. Absolutely.
And so here's how I'm doing my next book, because my next book is going to be a collaboration. I don't want just my voice on this one.
Right.
I want many, many voices, and I want them from all walks of life and different cultures and backgrounds and religion, all of that.
Yes.
So it's going to be a really rich tapestry. And these are people most of them that I know really well. And I realize not all of them are comfortable writing. They're not all writers. And so what I'm going to do, so when I say start in whatever way works for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do interviews face to face, like you and I are talking right now. And I'm going to talk about questions. I've been refining the questions, right? And I'll also asking myself the questions through my own coaching with my coach, and answering my own questions. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to record these interviews that I'm going to do. And it's going to be many, many interviews throughout this year. And then we're going to transcribe those interviews so they don't have to do any writing.
Right.
So we're going to transcribe the conversations, and then those will become the edited chapters of this next book.
Awesome.
So
that is so inclusive and makes so much sense in terms of accommodation and pulling more people in, because the thing that I get all the time, and I'm sure you get it too, oh, I could never write a book. Oh, I have to wait for some people to die first. Oh, I have to do this, or I have to do, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I have to do this, or I have to do that. And I'm always like, or you could just start talking about, you could just start writing it down, or you could just start thinking about it, or you could just start imagining what that might look like. You could just, do you know what I mean? I think people come to me all the time with their I can'ts. And you're so right. Again, just starting is exactly the first step when writing any book or any creation, any creative process starts with that first step. Yeah.
I mean, we have our phones, right?
Right. We have our phones.
We can speak into our phones and they could record us. So
exactly.
There are just so many ways to access your voice. And even with accessibility issues of any kind, we all need to ask for help. Do a better job. That would be the second thing I would say is number one, start. Number one, start. Number two, ask for help. Ask for help. Don't be shy. Don't think you're stupid. Don't think people don't care. Because you can find somebody who cares. If it's not,
you can find somebody who cares.
Yeah. If it's not a family member, it's a friend.
That's so right. Not everybody's a writer, right? Not everybody's an author. Not everybody's a writer. However, the people who have that kernel in them, the people who have that, could I be a writer? Could I be an author? Those people are writers, right? Not everybody wakes up with the same dream. Not everybody thinks I should write a memoir of my life. Not everybody thinks. So if that's what's beating your heart, you should try it. You should start. You should stop talking about yourself like that. You should stop worrying that you're not going to sell as many copies as like Colleen Hoover or whatever. That's not the job. That's
Yeah.
not why you were given that gift, that light. So
Yeah.
I agree. Start. Absolutely start. Stop talking down to yourself. Get some help if you need somebody. If you can't quiet that voice in your head, get some help from somebody like Lynn. Exactly. Agree.
I think really what you're saying is spot on, because that's really what makes us indomitable.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. We are all on our own individual paths. And the other people that are on the path with us, it is our job to hold up that lantern and show them how to get past that next fog. And if
Yes.
you're not doing that, what else are you doing? Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing that's so much anything than this?
Yes.
Everything is about how we connect to other people, how we build community, and how we set life for each other.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, Lynn, now that we are here, it seems like the right thing to do next is ask you, how do people get in touch with you if they want to work with you? What do you have going on next? What are you signing people up for? How can people connect with you?
Thank you so much. People
Of
can go to my
course.
website. My
Mm-hmm.
website is linnabatejohnson.com.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yep.
talks about, who I serve and what I do. And, I
Mm-hmm.
can work with people one-on-one. I love to work with brands who are conscious
Mm-hmm.
brands.
Conscious
And
brands. Yep.
yeah. And I'm creating right now, I've got a wait list building for the next
Mm-hmm.
show up due.
Yep.
And if you're interested in writing a book and you need some help and guidance, it doesn't take
Mm-hmm.
a lot. It's like,
Yeah.
I like to get in and get out with people. I like to get in,
Yeah.
give them a little push, and
Yes.
then let them do their thing,
Let
because,
them do their thing.
people are capable.
Yes,
Do
absolutely.
anything
So
because they need
what
that
about
little nudge.
speaking stuff? What are you looking for your next speaking role?
I love to speak. I'm one of those weird people that I love to be on
Yes.
stages in person, and I also have
Yes.
done keynotes online, on a recorded or Zoom online
Mm-hmm.
conference. And
Mm-hmm.
so so if you're looking for a speaker in um, community building, health and
Yep.
wellness,
Mm-hmm.
how to navigate grief in the workplace, for
Yes.
example,
Yes.
or how to humanize your brand. And it's all a little bit of marketing, a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
sales, and a lot of community building. If you're a global
Mm.
company, I've run a global business before. I really embrace lots of different cultures, and I end up learning sometimes more than I'm speaking about.
More than you're
So
getting. I know
yeah,
what you
so
mean.
invite me. I
All
will share.
learning experience. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Invite Lynn. Absolutely. Okay. All of that great stuff is going to be in the show notes. So you can get in touch, follow along, and hopefully engage with Lynn in your journey alongside us. Let me finish this up real quick. So, right? I know, it's such a process. So, y'all, thank you for tuning in with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the Indomitable podcast for more incredible stories of humaning. Remember, my new book, Indomitable, A Foster Care Story, is available everywhere you get your books and currently has 5 stars on Goodreads. Thank you to all of my Indomitable friends who came out to visit me at my book signing last week, because it is always so rewarding to see people impacted by the story sharing their journeys. If you have any upcoming events you'd like me to bring the Indomitable experience to, please submit a request via my website at dicerulo.com. And finally, as ever, I am so happy to have you here in community with me, because remember, together we are truly indomitable. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.